We are talking about living life together apart. And so I thought it would be a good time to talk about loneliness. Loneliness is one of the few remaining common feelings we have that are completely stigmatized. We've developed more and more words to account for the feeling that people are out there having a wonderful time and we are not there. Like FOMO, fear of missing out, just that perpetual sense that if you're looking on social media that like everyone is getting together without you. And now that we're here in pandemic world, it's worth re-examining our beliefs about loneliness. I think the first place to start is by acknowledging how unbelievably common it is to feel lonely and then to feel dumb for saying, I feel lonely. I remember the first time that I realized that I was unbelievably lonely, like as an adult. I was sort of in that transition from the crisis of cancer to the experience of just like chronic fear, and that big rush of everyone being there had sort of petered out. And then it was just me in this new terrible normal. And I looked around and I realized that I didn't really have all the same people in my life that I wanted or needed. And I thought, oh crap, I'm really lonely. And the second I admitted it, I felt really stupid for feeling that way. It felt like it was admitting to being unpopular. And it made me want to explore loneliness as maybe a more common experience than we might expect. So often, loneliness is the result of a transition, and usually one that we wouldn't have picked. So people talk about feeling lonely like after they have a kid, or even sometimes after they get married if they don't have the same friends or it's not syncing up, or especially after they get a divorce, or you move to a new place and all of a sudden you're just looking around and you just don't exactly have the people that you need. I had a lovely conversation on the podcast with Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the former Surgeon General of the United States. And he did this thing where as like America's doctor, you kind of do like a tour, you figure out like what's going on. And he thought he would go around and discover like a lot of heart disease and stuff like that. And he said that he was kind of blown away by the fact that the more people he talked to, the more he realized that one of the underlying conditions that was exacerbating people's health problems was loneliness. Is that when we have problems, that tends to be the part when our lives thin out. And that's the moment where we actually need the sort of mutual support, that feeling of like when all the cheerleaders come together and put their hands together and like volley people up. That's the moment that we need people. But that it was way more common than he realized for all of us to be struggling with loneliness alone. So in this kind of broader study he was doing on loneliness, he started looking at how many people we actually need in order to combat what he was calling this global epidemic of loneliness. And it is true that it's far larger in scope than we may have realized. For example, in the United Kingdom, they've even appointed like a minister of loneliness, like someone whose government job it is to track the expressions of loneliness and its ramifications for culture. So knowing then that it is sort of structural, that there are reasons why we're so lonely, and then having him frame out like a little language for then what we can do. He said, for someone to get over, especially the worst parts of loneliness, you really only need 3 people. I was like, what? No, I thought you need like 7 people and an Instagram account. He's like, no, that really to get over some of the worst parts of aloneness, you really only need your 3. Find your 3. That really inspired me to think, like, who is it? Like, have you ever seen the ring theory? It's this lovely visual of how people who go through something have circles sort of concentric circles. Think of like a tree and its various rings of like people who are affected by that problem. And the person who's going through the main thing is the thing in the middle. So what he's basically saying is like, who's that first rung around you that you need? Who are the 3 people that you can call or put on an emergency form or complain to or about, which is the fun part. So the fact that we're more basic than we realize is also part of the solution. Is that now in pandemic world, it is a great time to lift the social stigma on saying, I'm lonely. Because yeah, we are all crazy lonely. Even those of us who are unbelievably introverted, like my husband. He's like, yeah, I could really use a friend right now. So, like, now is the time. Now's the time to use this as the reason and the excuse to reach out, to like get in touch with that old friend, to like pick up the phone like a non-millennial and use the phone like a non-texting machine, to send a video, to just like figure out a way to reach across the divide, even though it's mediated, to reconstitute a little more of that connection that we all need to get a little more oxygen in our own little ecosystem. We feel lonely sometimes because we are, I don't mean to sound unbelievably depressing, but we're inherently trapped, right? Like we are trapped at a cellular level at our body, in our own bodies, and there are lots of things that no one can do for us. I remember that every time that I have to be wheeled into a surgery, that no one is going to trade places with me in my body. So right now, wherever you are, I get it. I get it. We are, in that way, alone. And that's a good time to pull apart 2 kinds of distinctions. Aloneness, which we can make some kind of peace with, and loneliness, which we can mostly do something about. We can reach out, we can find others, we can surround ourselves. But the one little bit in there that I just want to acknowledge is that there is a kind of ache inside of us that is natural. It is unquenchable. I think we could be in a house full of every single person who's ever loved us and having the time of our lives and having wine and cheese, if you're me, and there would still be a little ache. And that ache, in the Christian tradition, the way we talk about it is a little ache because we're not yet home. We are living in a world of not yetness. Our brokenness and of our cultures and our relationships and our lives and our bodies is still here. We are not yet made whole, which we will be at the end of time. So that ache we have is natural and just a part of the human condition. It makes great poetry, but I know it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be there. But it is the part of us that is only at home in God. And every now and then we get to feel it, and the rest of the time we get to live with it. So loneliness is not the enemy, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just who we are, the needs we have, and how we're made. So let's use the fact that we are built for connection as the reason and the excuse this week to reach out and make the connections that we need. And I hope you know that you are absolutely and in every way made to be loved. I hope you have a beautiful week.